In the wake of the horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk, Republicans are now pushing a mass doxing campaign against critics. JD Vance guest hosted the Charlie Kirk show yesterday. Take a look.
Flows from all of us. So when you see someone celebrating Charlie's murder, call them out. And hell, call their employer. We don't believe in political violence, but we do believe in civility.
In the past few days, numerous workers across various different fields, ranging from colleges to an airplane pilot, have been fired for their comments on Kirk's death. An anonymous website that began collecting reports of anti-Kirk political extremism said it had received more than 63,000 submissions. The website was originally named Expose Charlie's Murderers, but rebranded Monday to the Charlie Kirk Data Foundation. The group has previously said it had been targeted by hackers and, quote, leftist attacks. Its website was down on Tuesday. The vice president was joined on Kirk's podcast by Stephen Miller, Trump's deputy chief of staff, who also vowed to crack down on what he called the vast domestic terrorist network he blamed for Kirk's death. If you guys don't see an issue, anyone on any side of the aisle, with the president's administration straight up calling their political opposition terrorists, if you don't think that is incredibly inappropriate and incredibly dangerous, you really need to ask yourself what you think would be. You really need to look in the mirror and say, is this the country I want to live in, where a horrible tragedy is exploited to crack down on who we perceive to be our political enemies? In Texas, roughly 180 complaints have been filed against teachers. The Texas Education Agency is investigating roughly 180 complaints against teachers who've been accused of making inappropriate comments online about conservative activist Charlie Kirk's death, as several educators across the state have already been punished for allegedly doing so. Governor Abbott, the governor, posted those educators, more than 100, will have their teacher certification suspended and be ineligible to teach in a Texas public school. He posts to quote, the Texas Education Agency is investigating Texas teachers whose actions called for or incite violence following the Charlie Kirk assassination. While the president of the United States does not even remember the name of Democratic lawmakers who were gunned down just a couple of months ago. On the day of Kirk's assassination, a man was seen taken away in handcuffs. He was later released after officials determined he was not their suspect. He's now admitted that he was trying to draw attention from the real shooter, according to a report filed. Court records revealed that George Zinn, 71, a known gadfly who was led away from the Utah Valley University in handcuffs after the assassination last Wednesday, told cops he was trying to distract them from the real assassin. Zinn approached cops immediately after Kirk was killed and yelled, "I shot him, now shoot me," the report stated, citing police who noted that he was unarmed and taken into custody. The faux shooter made similarly strange and opaque comments after being transported to a local hospital due to a medical condition, saying he wanted to be a martyr for the person who was shot. Those court papers stated, according to the outlet, he is charged with obstruction of justice, which is a second-degree felony. FBI Director Kash Patel on Monday disclosed new findings from the investigation into alleged killer Tyler Robinson's communications, saying, quote, what was found in terms of information, a text message exchange where the subject, Robinson, specifically stated that he had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and he was going to do that, Patel said during an appearance on Fox News' Hannity. And when Robinson was asked why, he said, some hatred cannot be negotiated with, the FBI director added. Patel noted the evidence has also been collected through witness interviews showing that Robinson essentially admitted to killing Kirk after the September 10 shooting. The suspect admitted to it, the FBI director said, without going into detail and noting that he would not stylize the evidence. I would also like to make crystal clear the insane hypocrisy, the cruel and immoral, deeply evil hypocrisy of thinking somebody is hateful and so you murder them. which I don't know if you're aware of how murder works. It is the most hateful act you can possibly commit against somebody, which is why violence is not the answer ever. Unless you're in direct self-defense need to save your own life or those of your loved ones, never is violence the move. The words of Charlie Kirk were so hateful, according to this monster assassin, that he decides to take his life. I'd say that's pretty clearly worse. As of this morning, Tyler Robinson is charged with aggravated murder and weapon and obstruction offenses. The investigation is ongoing. Jackson, your thoughts?
So, I mean, obviously, this is fascism. They're trying to not only police people's speech, but also police people's thought. And at the end of the day, this is completely the antithesis of what Charlie Kirk stood for in terms of his championing for free speech. So, on the one hand, it's very easy for pretty much anybody and most people that I've seen, at least, to acknowledge that Charlie Kirk didn't deserve to get shot in the neck because of the things that he put forth. But at the same time, we can be honest and real about what he was so on board for. How many times, anytime he needed to scapegoat anyone, it was the black community. You know, when he talked about DEI and affirmative action, who overwhelmingly helped white women, it's never, oh, if I'm on the phone with an ignorant, Karen, it's an ignorant Shaniqua. It's, oh, this black woman's there because she had to go take a white woman's position. The Civil Rights Act was one of the biggest mistakes this country's ever made. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't. What do you expect people to say about this? What do you expect people to say? Do you want people to pretend like he was a loving individual? We don't have to do that. So let people say what they want. You know, is it wrong to celebrate his death? Absolutely. In a sense of political violence should not be pushed, celebrated under any circumstances. But at the same time, like, so you gonna fire people because they're saying, hey, I don't really agree with what Charlie Kirk stood for, because he was just like Rush Limbaugh. He was a grifter. He was a rage baiter. I don't think that, why can't these two things be true at the same time? Like, yeah, he had a wife and kids, but everyone has a family. So like stop trying to police how we feel about this man. He's dead. He shouldn't be. It's a shame that he is. There's a lot to talk about with like our gun laws in this country. There's a lot to talk about with partisanship in general. But are you gonna fire people for a man who stood for free speech? Like, it's just fascism. And it's, what else is there really to say about this, at least for me?
Yeah, yeah. I definitely agree that he did not deserve to be killed. I definitely agree also that we don't need to gloss over the negative things that he said. I think Charlie Kirk was a very challenging figure. I'm trying in the wake of somebody's death to speak fairly, but also not to too intensely share my opinions about somebody in the immediate wake of this tragedy. But I think it is important to point out the bad and wrong and immoral things that he said, especially because of the efforts to lionize him and to act as though he was this kind of figure. When I see posts comparing him to Martin Luther King Jr., I think it's important to correct the record and say that maybe was not the case. And that said, he was a human being. I knew him, I debated him one-on-one. We debated for well over an hour on abortion. In his studio, he flew me out a few years back and was cordial and held up his part of the agreement, held up his part of our bargain. Our debate ended contentiously, and he still shook my hand. And I went out to dinner as they had agreed to pay for my meals, and his people reimbursed my meals after that, after a contentious end to a debate. So I think it's important to focus on the fact that even if we disagreed with some of the incendiary things that Charlie Kirk said, some of the and pretty awful things that he said, it's also something positive that can be said about this man who was gunned down far too early in life. He was, to his credit, committed to conversation across the aisle. Most people these days live in their echo chambers and they don't want to even hear differing opinions, let alone consider them, and want to only feed to their audiences what they want to hear. And to his credit, you know, our debate, I don't think went great for him. He still posted it to his audience and let them hear all of my opinions on the issue of abortion, as did I on my YouTube. Let my audience hear his opinions. That's what we have to do in this country. If you disagree with somebody, you have to debate harder. You have to win in the marketplace of ideas. You have to convince people to come onto your side, because if you truly care about winning an argument, if you truly care about guiding the future of this country to the place that you would like it to go, obviously the only way to ever effectively do that is to win the argument, which might happen fast, but more often happens painfully slowly. As soon as you resort to violence, it just proves you can't win the argument, and it lends credence to the other side. So you not only achieve the exact opposite of what you're going for, you also become an evil monster that takes another's life, deciding on your own volition to be judge, jury, and executioner over somebody because you are too weak to win in the marketplace of ideas. And Charlie at least stood for the marketplace of ideas. And I think we can maybe come together as a nation by focusing on that, focusing on our commonalities, focusing on the things that we have in common more than the things that drive us apart. Perhaps realizing that we need to refocus on the fact that we are country over party in this country, that we should care more about the fact that we are all Americans rather than blue or red, because social media algorithms and our politicians want to divide us and want to push their own particular agenda. Realize we are Americans first, country first. That is supposed to be the slogan and the whole vibe of the Republican Party these days. So then walk that walk, and the same to the left. And perhaps even above country, we should realize that we are humans first, and that all of these arbitrary lines, they are important. They can help us feel safe. They can help us have community, help us have identity. But none of that should supersede our common humanity and the fact that we are all people trying to achieve the same things in this world: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are goals every single one of us share. So if we can remind ourselves that in the midst of our debates, in the midst of our social media outrage, in the midst of the algorithms trying to drive us apart, in the face of the algorithmic divide that is trying to tell us we are supposed to hate our fellow countrymen, remind ourselves that we have the same goals. We just disagree about how to get there. Maybe that can help tamp down the anger in this nation and bring us a little bit closer together. Because we're only going to go one of two ways in the wake of something like this. It's either going to get worse, or we're going to wake up and make sure, with our actions, with our eyeballs, with our attention, with our dollars, with our focus, with our public statements, bring us closer together. Let's hope that's what we choose.